Friday. Last night, everyone in my family agreed that our trip was off to a pretty terrible start, but we couldn't decide what to do next. I thought we should just admit this trip was a mistake and go back to Grandma's. But Dad said we couldn't turn around now because we hadn't done any actual camping yet. Dad said there was a national forest a few hours away, and if we camped there, we could stay in one place for the rest of the trip and relax for a change. National forest. I wasn't crazy about going off on our own, but I knew how the rest of the summer was gonna play out if we went back to Grandma's basement now. I didn't feel great about camping in the wilderness, but Dad said if we got into any trouble, there were rangers who could help us out. And that made me feel a little better. So we spent the night in the car park of the Adventure Center, and the first thing in the morning, we headed for the National Forest. The ranger at the entrance told us it hadn't rained in a few weeks, so the risk of fire was really high. Then she gave Dad a map and a pamphlet on tips on how to camp reasonably. The forest was big, so it took a while for us to get to our pitch. And we didn't see a single human being on our way in. The pitch was actually really nice. There was a lot of space for the camper van, and we were right next to a little stream. After we set up our hammock and chairs, we kicked back and enjoyed being out in nature. At least most of us did. After a few minutes, Mom asked what our plan was, and Dad said this was the plan. We're all on devices. Tap, tap, blip, blip, bleep. Mom said we couldn't just sit around all day, and we needed to do something active like go on a nature hike or something. But that sounded like a lot of work to us guys, especially after a long drive. So Mom said if we were all gonna laser around, she was gonna put our electronics in the vault for the rest of the trip. And that was enough to get us moving. Mom pulled out the map and found a trail that was nearby. And before we headed off on the hike, she told everyone to fill up our flasks and put on bug spray. But I was a lot more worried about bears than bugs. I remember the guy at the camping store said if you saw a bear out in nature, the best thing you could do was make noise to scare it away. Luckily, Uncle Gary left some pots and pans under the sink in the camper van. But I wasn't gonna wait until we spotted a bear to start making a racket. Clang, clang. Everyone got annoyed with me pretty quick, and Mom told me I needed to take the cookware back to the camper van. She said I could catch up with them further down the trail, and I was actually fine with that because that stuff was pretty heavy anyway. Plus, I was starting to wonder if the noise might actually attract bears because whenever I hear pots and pans, I'm thinking dinner. After I put the cookware back in the camper van, I turned around and got back on the trail. I thought if I hurried, it might take me 10 minutes to reconnect with everyone. But then I ran into a problem. The trail split and I didn't know which way my family went. I figured the odds were 50-50, so I headed left. But I walked for a long time without finding them and figured I must have picked the wrong path. So I went back to the place where the fork in the trail was, and that's where I hit another snag. I was all turned around and couldn't remember which path was the one I hadn't taken yet and which one led back to the camper van. And I couldn't tell which one was which because to me, every tree and rock looked the same. That's when I started to get worried. I remembered the guy at the camping store saying that sometimes bears will use human trails because it's easier than walking through the brush. So I really didn't feel good about hanging out in the middle of an intersection. I read that a bear's sense of smell is 1,000 times better than humans. So when I pulled out the container of lip balm I had in my pocket, I practically started hyperventilating. Organic honeybee lip balm. I decided to get off the trail, which turned out to be a dumb move, because once I was off the path, I couldn't find my way back. My mind started racing, and I thought about what would happen if I was lost for good. I've read stories about human beings who got cut off from civilization and were raised by wolves. I didn't know if there were wolves in this forest, but there were plenty of squirrels. Chitter, 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 chitter. Luckily, my family found me before things could get too crazy, because in another hour or two, I might have been too far gone. Gobble smack. When we got back to camp, Mom asked Roderick to check me for ticks since I've been off the trail. He looked me over and told me I had a huge tick right in the middle of my back. Roderick said the tick must have been on me for a while because it looked like it was about to burst. And I almost passed out when he showed me the picture he took on his phone. It turns out it was a joke. And the picture was something Roderick found online. But even after I knew it was a joke, I still felt like something was in the middle of my back for the rest of the day. Mom said everyone should take a shower since it had been 2 days and we were starting to stink. Roderick went first, and he was in there for at least half an hour. So when it was my turn, there was no hot water left. Scream! Dad checked the propane tank and said it was empty, which meant it was cold showers from now on. No one was happy about that, especially Mom. I noticed that it was really starting to smell in the bathroom, so I told Dad. He said the reason it stank because we hadn't emptied out the sewage tank yet. To be honest with you, I didn't even think about what happened to our waste in there. Back home, when you flush the toilet, everything gets magically whisked away to some faraway place. But in a camper van, you're actually carrying that stuff around with you. If I had known that beforehand, I'm not sure I would have agreed to go on this trip. Slush. Now I was starting to worry about what happened if the tank overflowed. So today, whenever someone looked like they needed to go to number 2, I tried to talk them into taking it somewhere else. I guess I should be grateful we live in a time when toilets even exist. Roderick told me that the guy who invented the flushing toilet was named Thomas Crapper. I don't know if that's true or if it's another one of his jokes. But if it's true, I hope that guy made a ton of money, because I wouldn't want a body function named after me. Yo, I'm gonna take Greg. Dad got a fire going and cooked some beef stew. He was gonna serve baked beans to go with it, but Roderick left the can too close to the fire, and that was the end of that. Blam! After dinner, we tied up our trash and hoisted it in a tree with a rope, like the guy at the camping store told us to. I figured if any bear was smart enough to get at our trash, then they deserved to have it. By now it was dark out, and Mom said we should turn in for the night. But Dad said the best part of camping was sitting around the campfire under the stars. That got Mom all excited, and she tried to get us to join in on a song that she said she learned at summer camp when she was a kid. But the rest of us aren't real big on sing-alongs, so we just waited for Mom to wrap it up. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Lisa, dear Lisa. After that, Dad brought out some marshmallows and we found some long sticks. While we were roasting our marshmallows over the fire, Dad got all serious. He told us that a long time ago he went camping with his dad and they'd met a crusty old ranger who told them a crazy story. The ranger said he used to have a beagle named Matilda and she'd follow him wherever he'd go. But then this one night the ranger made a fire and he saw a weird creature with glowing red eyes prowling around the edge of the camp. Matilda chased after the creature and the ranger tracked her deep into the woods. But the only trace of the dog was her broken collar lying on the ground. Dad said that every night the ranger would sleep in his cabin alone, hoping Matilda would find her way back to him. And on nights just like tonight, when there was a crescent moon, he'd hear the howl of a beagle deep in the woods. Aroo! Mom wasn't happy with Dad for telling that story because Manny seemed really shook up. And to be honest, I was a little spooked too. Then I heard a sound coming from deep in the woods that made my heart stop. Aroo! For a split second, I thought it was the ghost of Matilda. But then I realized Roderick was missing and the whole thing was one big joke Dad and Roderick were playing on the rest of us. But it kind of backfired because when Roderick howled, Manny jumped. And that's how Dad ended up with a flaming marshmallow stuck to his knee. Shriek! Fling! I think Dad was about to dive in the stream to put out the fire, but luckily Roderick remembered where we kept the fire extinguisher. Mom started giving Dad a lecture about why you should never scare people, but she got cut off by weird noises coming from the forest. At first I thought it might be another joke, but the look in Dad's and Roderick's eyes told me it wasn't. Snuffle grunt. Whatever was out there, it sounded big and was coming our way. So we piled into the camper van and locked the door behind us. Sure enough, it was a bear, but it wasn't after our trash, it was after the baked beans. Once the bear was done licking the beans off the camper van, it wanted more, and I wish I could say we stayed calm, but I'd be lying. Scream, slobber! Dad climbed into the driver's seat to get us out of there, but the keys were by the fire. And when the bear started rocking the camper van, I thought it was over for us. I guess Manny did too, because he managed to scramble out of a window and get up on the roof. And he took the flare gun with him. Whoosh! Saturday. Last night, the light from the flare scared off the bear, so when the ranger arrived at our pitch, we really didn't need to be rescued anymore. By then, our biggest problem was the marshmallow burn on Dad's knee. The ranger said it was totally reckless for us to shoot off that flare because it could have started a forest fire. Then she said we were gonna have to leave the park first thing in the morning. Well, that was fine with me. We lasted one night in the wilderness and I didn't think we could survive another. Vroom. When we left for the park this morning, I was really looking forward to getting back to Grandma's basement. I knew we'd have plenty of hot water and no bears. But Mom wasn't ready to go back home just yet. She said the reason we had a bad time camping was because we were too isolated. If we went to a place where there were other people, we'd have more fun. Mom told us she'd heard of these campsites where they have all sorts of activities for families and everything you need is in one place. Then she started looking up nearby campsites and found one that had potential. Welcome to Paradise, Campers Eden, luxury campsite. 42 acres of well-manicured grounds just off the highway. Accommodations for all budgets. Affordable family fun. Pet-friendly. Check out our swimming pool. What caught my eyes was the word luxury. After getting a taste of real camping, I was ready for something a little more upmarket. I knew from Sunday school that Eden was another word for paradise, so that sounded promising. The way I remember it, Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because one of them was tempted to eat an apple from a forbidden tree. If it was me, I wouldn't have given up paradise for a piece of fruit. It would have had to have been for something good, like cake. It took us most of the day to get to Campers Eden, but when we crossed the bridge and got our first look at the place, I could see why they named it the way they did. We pulled up to the lodge and went inside, where a member of staff told us about all the awesome stuff they had at the campsite, like a games room and a pool and sand pits, plus a lake with canoes and kayaks. There was also a shower block where you could take a hot shower, which was the thing Mom was most excited about. What I liked was that each pitch had its own sewer hookup. The inside of our camper van was starting to smell like a monkey house, and I was really looking forward to our sewage tank getting flushed out. Mom told the member of staff we'd like a pitch with lake view, but the woman told Mom that people booked those way ahead of time and that the only spots left were in the economy lot. I guess Mom was focused on that hot shower, so she said we'd take whatever they had. And after we paid up for the week, we drove our camper van down the hill to find our pitch. The further down the hill we went, the smaller the pitches got, and we found our spot that could barely fit the camper van onto the concrete pad. After we parked, Mom unloaded the camping chairs while Dad tried to figure out how to flush the sewage tank. I wanted to be as far away as possible when he got that process started, so I told Mom and Dad I was gonna go off and explore the campsite. I wanted to check out the games room, so that's where I went first. There were a few arcade machines in there, but nothing I was really interested in playing. Dough Hunter. Blam, blam. They had a pool table, but from what I could tell, it didn't have any actual balls. Swoop. I checked out the swimming pool next, and that was kind of a disappointment too. It was full of little kids, and their parents weren't even keeping an eye on them. Nowadays, kids wear these floaty vests, so they don't even have to learn how to swim. It's not like when I was growing up when you had to learn the hard way. Swim! Some of the little kids drifted out into the deep end, which was a problem because people were doing cannonballs off the high board. Sploosh! There was no lifeguard on duty, so everyone was pretty much doing whatever they wanted. I didn't really feel safe going in the pool, so I decided to relax in the hot tub instead. But that's when I found out that this place wasn't joking around about the pet-friendly thing. There was a snack shack in the pool area, and the laundrette and shower block were close by. I wanted to kill a little more time before I went back to our camper van in case Dan wasn't done with emptying out the sewage tank. So I explored some of the other pitches to see what they were like. The nicest ones were the deluxe pitches that overlooked the stream. Those people had satellite dishes and fancy barbecues, and they had actual lawns they took care of. I could tell the deluxe campsite people didn't like us economy guys hanging around their properties, though, so I didn't stick around long. Snip. The spots further down the hill weren't as nice, but each row was kind of like its own neighborhood. One of the rows had a bunch of older people in it, so I'm guessing that was the area for retirees. A few rows down were families with little kids. Some of the rows had themes, and people went kind of crazy with the decorations. A few people didn't have full-size camper vans, and I felt grateful that Uncle Gary hadn't left us one of those instead. Some other people didn't have camper vans at all. There was one area that looked like it had a full motorcycle gang in it, and I was glad we didn't end up as neighbors with those guys. But it might have been worse if we'd ended up in the pet-friendly row, because that area was a total zoo. Bark, bark, ruff, ruff, meow, chirp. I could tell when I was getting closer to the economy row because the pitches were packed a whole lot tighter and people had to make the most of their space. Toss. When I got back to our pitch, Dad was cooking hot dogs on the barbecue. I wanted to ask him if he washed his hands after doing the sewage hookup, but I thought he might get annoyed with me. Mom was trying to get to know some of her neighbors, but they seemed like the type of people who like to keep to themselves. Once Dad was done cooking, we sat down at our picnic table to eat. But the people on the other side of us were playing beanbag toss on their roof, and somebody up there had a loosie in. Splop, splop. While we were cleaning up the mess, I told Mom and Dad I thought coming here might have been a mistake. But Mom said sometimes it's hard getting used to a new place, and I just needed to give it a chance. Then she reminded me that we hadn't even visited the lake yet, which should be the best part. I was about to say something else when I got interrupted by a noise coming from the direction of the main lodge. Ree! Ree! It sounded like one of those air raid sirens you hear in a war movie when enemy bombers are approaching, and it put me totally on edge. Our next door neighbors seemed nervous too, and they gathered up their stuff to take inside their camper van. When Dad asked what the siren was for, our neighbor said it meant there was a skunk on the property and everyone needed to get inside in a hurry. Well, that was enough to get us moving. We shut our door and peeked out of the window while we waited. Sure enough, a few minutes later, a skunk came sniffing around our pitch. Shuffle. It got up on the picnic table, and when it started eating our hot dogs, there was nothing we could do but watch. Gobble, gobble. Once the skunk was done eating, it left. After a while, the siren stopped and everyone came back outside. And even though the skunk was gone, the whole pit smelled terrible. Dad said the reason it smelled so bad was because there's some sort of chemical in the skunk's glands that people can smell from a mile away. And he said if you got sprayed by a skunk, it would be 1,000 times worse. He said the best thing you could do if you ran into a skunk was to back away slowly, because a skunk will only spray a person if it feels like it's concerned or threatened. Then he said you're about to be sprayed if a skunk stands on its front legs and wiggles its butt. But by then it's probably too late. Chitter, chitter. Roderick said that a skunk spray doesn't just smell bad, it's flammable too. I don't know if that's true or if it's just one of his lies. If it is true, then once skunks figure out how to light matches, us human beings are in big trouble. Hi! Boom! When God created the animals, He gave them all cool stuff to defend themselves with, like shells and talons and claws. But then when the time came to create people, all the good ideas were used up. Good luck! I guess God made up for it by giving us big brains. But if it was up to me, I probably would have gone with quills. I figure if something as small as a skunk could scare off predators by smelling bad, then maybe it could work for me. And that's when I decided I'm not gonna shower until I finish high school. I probably shouldn't have told Mom my plan, though, because all it did was remind her that I skipped taking a shower today. So now she's making me take one first thing tomorrow morning. Sniff, sniff. Bleep, bleep, blurp. Luckily, we had a few extra hot dogs in the camper van, and Dad cooked them over the fire. But I kept thinking about that skunk. So I was already a little jumpy when all of a sudden we got sprayed. Whoosh! But it wasn't a skunk that sprayed us. It was one of our neighbors. Apparently, 9 o'clock is lights out at camp, and I guess people around here take that pretty seriously. So we turned in for the night, but I didn't really sleep. Because, like I said before, those economy pictures were packed together tight. Zzz, zzz, zzz.